Imagine the frozen hell of the Ardennes forest in December 1944, where the fate of World War II hung by a thread. The German army, in a desperate gamble known as the Battle of the Bulge, had smashed through Allied lines, creating a massive salient that threatened to split the forces in two and capture the vital port of Antwerp. At the heart of this chaos lay Bastogne, a sleepy Belgian crossroads town suddenly transformed into a linchpin of the war. Surrounded on all sides, the 101st Airborne Division, the Screaming Eagles, along with remnants of the 10th Armored Division and other units, clung to their positions amid blizzards and sub-zero temperatures. Ammunition dwindled to mere handfuls per man. Medical supplies vanished, and the wounded froze in makeshift basements turned hospitals. German panzer divisions, outnumbering the Americans 5-1, tightened the noose, their tanks rumbling like thunder through the fog. Adolf Hitler himself had decreed Bastogne's total destruction, viewing it as the key to breaking Allied resolve. With Allied planes grounded by relentless storms, no resupply drops or airstrikes could pierce the gloom. The paratroopers, elite warriors who had leaped into Normandy on DAD and endured the horrors of Market Garden, now faced annihilation. Intelligence reports painted a grim picture. They could hold for perhaps 4 days, maybe 5 at best, before being overrun. In the dimly lit war room at Supreme Headquarters, Allied Expeditionary Force in Versailles, General Dwight D. Eisenhower absorbed the dire updates with a stoic facade that masked his exhaustion. He hadn't slept more than a few hours since the offensive erupted on December 16. Maps sprawled across tables showed the bulging German advance, with Bastogne marked as an isolated red dot amid enemy blue. Over 11,000 American soldiers were trapped there, their perimeter shrinking under ceaseless artillery barrages that turned the snow red with blood. Eisenhower's mind raced through the implications. Losing an entire airborne division would shatter morale across the Allied front, emboldening the Nazis and prolonging the war by months. These were America's finest, symbols of grit and innovation. Their destruction would echo like a death knell. As staff officers outlined options, the truth emerged: starkly British forces under Field Marshal Montgomery were pinned down in the north, containing the bulge but unable to pivot south swiftly. Other U.S. units were locked in brutal holding actions. Bleeding men and materiel, only one force had the mobility and audacity for a rapid counterstroke. General George S. Patton's Third Army engaged 100 miles south in the Saar region. Patton, the flamboyant tanker with a pearl-handled revolver and a reputation for brilliance laced with controversy, had been Eisenhower's thorn and savior throughout the campaign. Their bond stretched back decades, forged in interwar tank debates and tested by Patton's infamous soldier-slapping incidents in Sicily. Now, Eisenhower realized with a mix of dread and hope, Patton was the only commander who could orchestrate the impossible 90-degree turn of an entire army through ice-licked roads to punch northward. Eisenhower issued the order without hesitation, summoned Patton to an emergency conference at Verdun on December 19, and instructed him to arrive with offensive plans ready. Alone, after his staff departed, Eisenhower stared at the map, the weight of command pressing like the Ardennes cold. He knew Patton's ego could eclipse his genius, but in this crisis, that same unyielding confidence might be the spark needed. The Verdun meeting unfolded in a tense, smoke-filled room. Generals huddled around strategy boards amid the distant rumble of guns. Eisenhower set the tone firmly. This bulge was not a disaster, but an opportunity to crush the Germans while overextended. He challenged his commanders to think boldly. How soon could they mount a relief effort for Bastogne? Calculations flew. Logistics nightmares, fuel shortages, troop fatigue. Then Patton, ever the showman, yet backed by meticulous preparation, declared he could attack on December 22 with 3 divisions. The room fell silent. Jaws dropped at the audacity. Disengaging from the Saar, wheeling 90 degrees, marching over 100 miles in blizzards, and launching a coordinated assault in just 72 hours defied military textbooks. Eisenhower fixed Patton with a piercing gaze, demanding realism over bravado. The lives of thousands hung on this promise. If Patton faltered, the 101st would perish. Patton, unflinching, revealed his staff had already wargamed 3 contingencies. This wasn't bluster. It was calculated certainty. Impressed by the foresight, Eisenhower assigned the mission: relieve Bastogne with full operational latitude. But he added a steel-edged warning: failure meant the end of Patton's career. No appeals. As Patton's Third Army executed its legendary pivot, Eisenhower endured a week of torment that aged him visibly. Hourly reports from Bastogne grew bleaker. On December 21, German shells hammered positions relentlessly. Casualties soared. Brigadier General Anthony McAuliffe, acting commander of the 101st, received a surrender ultimatum from the Germans, promising honorable terms or annihilation. His one-word reply, "Nuts," electrified his troops and became legend, a defiant slap that masked their desperation. Eisenhower smiled briefly upon hearing it, noting their unbroken spirit. Yet privately, in his diary, he confessed doubts. Trusting Patton was a gamble born of necessity. but every delayed hour meant more dead paratroopers, their blood potentially on his hands. December 22nd saw Patton's forces surge north as promised. But progress crawled against fanatical resistance, minefields, and drifts of snow. In Bastogne, rifles held 5 rounds apiece, medics triaged the dying without morphine, and hand-to-hand clashes erupted in fog-shrouded woods. The encircled men, dubbing themselves the battered bastards of Bastogne, fashioned anti-tank weapons from scavenged bazookas and prayed for miracles. On December 23rd, the skies cleared just enough for C-47 transports to parachute in crates of ammo, care rations, and plasma, a lifeline that bought precious time amid intensified German probes. Christmas Eve brought no peace. Eisenhower paced his office, reports showing Patton spearhead the 4th Armored Division still miles short, bogged down in fierce tank duels. He drafted condolence letters to families, personal notes to McAuliffe's wife and the division chaplain, envisioning the worst. Staff noted he looked a decade older, his usual calm frayed by the strain. Christmas Day passed, in agony no breakthrough. The 101st's perimeter contracting under assaults that overran outposts, forcing bayonet charges to reclaim ground. Germans prepared a final crush, Hitler obsessing over Bastogne's roads for his stalled panzers. Eisenhower wired Patton urgently, maximum effort, or all is lost. Patton, invoking his own flair for the dramatic, had distributed a prayer to his troops for clear weather, beseeching divine intervention against the storms. Whether fate or coincidence, the skies held. Then, on December 26th at 4:50 p.m., the phone jangled in Eisenhower's headquarters. It was Patton. "We're through." The 4th Armored's lead tank, Cobra King, linked up with the 101st at 1650 hours. The corridors narrow, but secure supplies flowing. Eisenhower gripped the receiver, emotion cracking his voice as he demanded confirmation. Relief washed over him like a tide. The screaming eagles were saved, battered but unbroken. In the aftermath, Eisenhower's gratitude poured forth in messages and assessments that cemented the operation's legacy. He telegrammed Patton personally. Words failed to capture the admiration for Third Army's feat, saving not just 11,000 men but potentially the entire Ardennes front. This pivot and breakthrough would be dissected in academies for generations as a masterclass in mobility and aggression. 2. Army Chief of Staff, General George Marshall. Eisenhower confided candidly, Patton had rescued his command from catastrophe. The psychological blow of losing Bastogne would have unraveled Allied strategy and questioned his leadership. Despite endless frustrations, Patton's insubordination, media storms, and ego clashes, this triumph justified every tough call to retain him. To Montgomery, Eisenhower highlighted it as American operational prowess at its peak, quelling doubts about U.S. effectiveness. In his diary, he reflected deeply. Managing Patton had been a trial of years. Moments of fury where dismissal tempted him. Yet Bastogne proved him invaluable, a commander who delivered miracles when others saw only doom. Precisely on schedule without excuses. Years later, in his memoir Crusade in Europe, Eisenhower devoted pages to the relief as a pivotal triumph of coordination and will, showcasing American excellence under duress. In a 1964 interview, he revisited the agony of that decision, betting everything on a volatile subordinate. The lives of thousands and the war's momentum. The relief brought indescribable gratitude. Patton's call, "We're through to Bastogne," ranked among the war's most profound words. By 1965, in his final writings, Eisenhower assessed Patton's place in history. Amid World War II's generals, few matched his salvation of a division through sheer brilliance. Flawed, controversial, difficult, yes, but the man who rejected defeat's inevitability, promising rescue and fulfilling it. Bastogne wasn't mere tactics, it was genius triumphing over adversity, a reminder that extraordinary leaders, however challenging, forge legends in fire. This tale of defiance against overwhelming odds, where one general's audacity and another's trust turned the tide, reveals the human core of history's turning points. It underscores how personal bonds and bold risks can alter destinies, inspiring those facing their own battles to push beyond limits.